Hi students, welcome to today's class. Today we are going to discuss the story The Pot Maker by Temsula. The Pot Maker is a mesmerizing short story that leaves the readers in pathos with its melancholic thread. It is the story of a young, ambitious girl named Centilla who aspires to become a pot maker, totally against her mother's opposition. Centilla's mother wanted her to turn into weaving, which was then considered as a reputable profession. But Centilla was too much obsessed with her traditional art of pot making, and she sought out the help of elder women pot makers when her parents went to the fields for daily work. These elder women pot makers tried their very best to persuade Centilla from learning pottery, for they said it was a back-breaking process with no profit made out of it. Out of 100 pots they made, only 50 would fetch a good price. Some might be completely ruined while firing or due to unexpected showers. They even asked Centilla why her mother Erinla and her grandmother, who were once the finest pot makers of their tribe, haven't told her about these difficulties that every tribal pot maker confronted with. Centilla was so determined that she would strap her baby brother on her back with a cloth and steep up the hill where the elderly women pot makers lived. And now, Centilla's regular visits to the old pot makers became a topic of gossip in their village. The village council, who came to know about Centilla's clandestine visits, summoned her father Misoba to enquire about this. They asked him why Erinla showed reluctance in passing on her skills to her daughter Centilla, which was also her birthright. Misoba, who was in a state of dilemma, couldn't either reveal the truth that Erinla wanted her daughter to learn another craft like weaving, nor deny knowledge of his daughter's clandestine visits. He distorted the story and told them Centilla was interested in a particular lady who sang beautiful lullabies and gave her sweet potato. And Erinla never showed reluctance, but they were just waiting for Centilla to grow little bigger and stronger after an illness she got before they took her to the Lithu to dig the clay. He added, even they ordered a dao, which was a utensil for digging the clay, for Centilla. With his explanation, he was spared from the wrath of the village elders, who warned him not to restrict the child's natural instincts for learning the craft. As Erinla was an heir to the age-old legacy of pot making, was supposed to impart the basics of pottery not only to Centilla, but also anyone who approached her to learn the craft from her. In case of refusal, she shall be treated as an enemy to the entire village. The very next year, Centilla was taken to Lithu by Erinla to dig the clay. She was taught the basics of pot making, like digging, loading, and stuffing it into the bamboo cylinder. A quick learner and a hard worker, Centilla assimilated all these lessons within no time. But she faced problems in holding the clay on her thighs before loading it on the wheel. And with each consecutive efforts to learn the craft, she failed disastrously. But Centilla's ardent desire to learn the craft never allowed her to succumb to defeat. She observed her mother and tried to imitate her, which too was spoiled, and soon Centilla fell prey to her mother's wrath. She even believed that her mother's antipathy towards her has put a jinx or an evil eye on each lump of clay she touched. All what she produced were now misshapen parodies. Scintilla, who had suffered so much humiliation in her mother's presence for failing to master a simple craft, had now begun to improve with the guidance of Onula. Onula was a warden of a dormitory which was meant for giving post-puberty counseling to young girls who attained puberty. She offered her all possible help she could to help Scintilla master the craft. Onula identified Scintilla's problem. Scintilla was too tense and lacked the rhythm in tapping the spatula, and the recalcitrant clay was unwilling to yield. Onula now advised Scintilla to observe how her mother held her hands and how she slackened the rhythm when fashioning the pots. It came to the surprise of Scintilla that one day Erenla told Scintilla that they should make as many pots they could, for they might not get enough sunshine as the monsoon was nearing. Both daughter and mother started working together. After having completed a batch of pots, Erenla asked Scintilla to take up the task and went home complaining of a headache. Scintilla was indeed surprised at her mother's confidence in her talent. With mixed feelings, she started doing wonder with all the lessons that she learned from Onula. As she lifted the spatula to start beating the dough, she felt as if another pair of hands had taken over. As if in a trance, she completed a row of pots just one short of her mother's tally. Eager to share this great experience with her mother, who hasn't still returned, she went home in search of her mother. Unfortunately, the sight she saw there was heartbreaking. Her mother was found dead, with her mouth agape. There was also a dry streak of saliva that dripped from her mouth. Scintilla ran to the village common for help. She couldn't sleep that night. Without proper food and sleep, she stayed awake seated by her mother's dead body, muttering, "Please forgive me, mother." Scintilla's plea for forgiveness was hardly understandable to the mourners, except for Onula. Though she did not know exactly what had happened the day before, she sensed something momentous had happened which transformed both the mother and daughter. Onula, on her way back, noticed that the door of the workshed was slightly ajar. She could also spot 2 neat rows of fresh pots which she examined closely to find any difference between the two. But she couldn't find any difference at all. But one thing was sure, that it couldn't be the handiwork of just one person, for Scintilla was not an expert to make such fine pots all alone in a very short time. Also, it could not be done by Erenla, for she left for home much before the midday hour. So how was it possible? It could only be possible as a result of a combined effort made by both Scintilla as well as Erenla, if they were involved in this. Onula, unable to absorb this new phenomenon, slowly walked away from the shed. What she witnessed was a testimony to the birth of a new tradition. The old tradition gave way to the new tradition, and a new potmaker was born. Scintilla took up the mantle of Erenla and became the new potmaker.